Hello, everyone. I am Steve Jordan. I am a teacher and writer in Chicago, Illinois. Have the pleasure of interviewing Cory Fosco, who has a brand new book out called Empty Streets that I'm holding right there. And I will start with a quick bio before we talk to the real human being. Cory Fosco received his MA in creative writing, nonfiction from Northwestern University, and his BA creative writing in fiction from Loyola University, Chicago. He has previously been published in Bright Flash Literary Review, in parentheses, A Thin Slice of Anxiety, Teach, Write, Superstition Review, and Hippocampus Magazine. Cory Fosco, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. It's nice to be here with you, and I appreciate you doing this. And also, I'd like to thank Alien Buddha Press for agreeing to publish my collection of essays, poetry, and short stories.
When you were young, did you think it was inevitable that one day you'd have a book, or is this like beyond your wildest dreams?
I've been writing a long time. I really took up the craft in college, but I started writing or had an interest in writing when I was younger. I read a lot. I never really thought that I would put a collection together. It wasn't a huge aspiration for me. So when the opportunity came up to do this, I jumped on it and was excited that Alien Buddha Press agreed to publish my stuff.
It all happened quickly. They accepted you right away.
It
And boom.
did. It happened really quickly, and he's the publisher is great to work with, and the book looks great, and I'm excited for when it comes out next week.
Was there a moment when you realized writing was going to be something important in your life?
Yeah, I think it was in college. My parents had gotten divorced right when I was finishing high school, and I was the first to go to college in my family, and my dad didn't even finish high school. He was a baggage clerk for 35 years with American Airlines. My mom did go to community college and had a bunch of jobs that she did, but my brothers, who were older than me, didn't go to college. One went into the Air Force, one worked retail, and then he was a 911 operator. And for me, I had to figure it out. So while I was at Loyola, I tried a bunch of different things. I wasn't very active in high school, and then once I got to Loyola, I started writing, and it was a way for me to process my emotions, I think. And a lot of what I write is just for me to process, and then I run with it after that.
That's a nice credit to Loyola too, that you had a blossoming interest and there was people there to nurture it and support it.
Yeah, I mean, I had three specific teachers that I think I could attribute it to. Alan Franson was really the first person that opened up poetry to me, and he was more of a medieval teacher, but he became a mentor to me. And then David Michael Kaplan in the short story realm, he was great. He did a couple of books, and one was a collection of short stories that was a novel. And he wrote a book about revision. And then another poetry teacher, Dean Young, was very instrumental as well, but he was way different than the other two.
It sounds like that's good. You want as many different voices and types of
Yeah,
people.
yeah. And then I actually didn't even know what creative nonfiction was until I submitted my application for poetry to Northwestern and was told, hey, your poetry really is this creative nonfiction. I'm like, what is that? Even though I was reading creative nonfiction, I took a class with Sheila Donahue and wrote one of the stories or one of the essays that's actually in the collection about Home Depot. And I loved it. And then I resubmitted and was accepted, and the rest is history, I guess.
And we know you got a writing degree as an undergraduate. You think the actually getting, I'm sure there's somebody somewhere who's going to argue, you don't need to get a writing degree, just write
Yeah.
on your, et cetera, et cetera. Was your 2 degrees instrumental in you becoming the writer you are today?
It's one of those, oh, didn't only get the undergrad, I went ahead and got the graduate degree. And I never went to business school, but one of the things I think people, when you go and get an advanced degree, it's the people you meet, right? So I think the advantage for me going to Northwestern was I got to meet you. I got to meet Jeff Bird. I got to meet Matt Wood and Colleen and a bunch of other folks, Maureen, that became pivotal in my writing career, became friends and people I truly trust. And then you look at folks like Miles Harvey and Sandy Weisenberg, I'm sure Becky Bradway, who all became instrumental in helping me figure out who I wanted to be as a writer and where I wanted to go with my writing too. So I don't know that you have to go if you're going to write, you want to write, if you want to write, just write.
Yeah.
But I believe I can't continue on. I haven't been able to continue on with my craft without people like you and Jeff, who, we regularly trust each other and, critique each other's work and make us better writers by working together. So,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
we graduated in 2007, so that's like 17 years later. We're still,
It's been a long time and, not only lifelong friends, but again, you guys are my first readers. I trust the things you challenge me on. I trust the things that you say work, the things that aren't working. And I published because of it. This collection, as I told Jeff the other day, has your stank all over it. So grad school because of that. And I also been able to teach and encourage others, right? I taught at Harper Community College for 10 years. I've taught at Second Sense, which is a non-for-profit for those who are vision impaired, which my wife learned how to use the white cane there. And one of my stories is called Disability Chicken, which maybe we'll talk about. But I taught a class of vision impaired students, and the joy I get out of teaching is another advantage of going to grad school.
you could have been a teacher, though then you would have been underpaid like all teachers.
Yeah, I certainly don't do it when I teach. I don't do it for the money, that's for sure.
Um, I'm ready to talk specifically about some of your pieces.
Okay, sure.
So there's fiction, nonfiction, and poetry all
Correct.
in the same book. It spans how many years? Like the earliest piece you said was written at Northwestern?
Well, no, actually, a couple of the poems that are in there are from my undergrad. So it spans 30 plus years.
Okay.
The Day I Was Born was written when I was an undergrad. And that may be the only one from undergrad, but yeah, so it spans the continuum from undergrad, grad school, and beyond.
Wow. They're not in chronological order.
They are not in chronological order. So we basically structured the book with four creative nonfiction essays. I think there's 10 poems in there, and then there's 3 short stories.
Got it. All right, you mentioned Disability Chicken. It's one of your nonfiction pieces. Why don't you
Yep.
just tell us? I mean, it is a striking title. Why
Yeah.
don't you tell us what the title refers
Yeah,
to?
that's one of the newer ones. I think I wrote that since moving back into the city in 2020. My wife and my wife is vision impaired. She has only about 5% vision left. So a lot of what I've been writing, especially in the past few years, has to do with the blind or those who are vision impaired. But we walk just about every single day. And this was before she got her guide dog. She has a guide dog now. We would walk around the neighborhood, and she has her white cane. That's the red and white cane that those who are vision impaired would use. And as we're walking down the street, on the sidewalk, we oftentimes would approach other folks who are disabled, maybe in a wheelchair or a walker, what have you. And so in my mind, I wanted to play this game because oftentimes people are just in their own world and they're on their phones or they're talking and they don't pay attention to others who are around them. And I've learned to become a little bit less anxious about it all. But when I wrote that essay, it was this game I would play called Disability Chicken. And I always, that game of chicken, and I wanted to let the other people win, right? Because we could go around and I'm sighted, so I can get around and not make it inconvenient for the person in the wheelchair that is in this story. So that was a fun essay to write. You and Jeff certainly helped me make it to where that was one of my one of the essays in the collection that was previously published as well, which I do thank all of the previous publications, and they're noted in the collection as well. But that was a fun essay to write for sure.
So how do you know, you're walking with your wife, you probably think to yourself, make a joke, and you tell your wife. I mean, that's sort of the framing of the
Yeah,
essay. Hey,
yeah.
disability chicken, what is that? You kind of explain it to her. Um, how do you know when this thing happens in your life and you're like, you know what, this is going to be an essay? Does something hit you? Do you think about it later?
That's a great question. I just put it in the back of my head, and I probably wrote some things down. And then I don't really remember the original draft, but I brought it to our writing group, and you guys helped me make it to what it became. I'm sure I blathered on forever. In fact, I remember us working heavily on the ending of that piece. And the ending you guys helped me create was way better than my original version. And so, I probably go through several different versions before it's ready, right? And people often ask, how do you know something's ready? There's a couple of ways. You just have to be done with it, or when it gets accepted for publication, right?
Mhm.
And I just felt that that particular piece, like much of my things, I'm just going to sit down at my desk, or I'm going to sit down, with a notebook and just start writing whatever comes to mind. And Disability Chicken came out that way, and I was excited for that one.
This isn't like I'm trying to brag about my help, but the ending's fantastic. I mean, I feel
I
it's like an
agree.
important moment.
You can brag. You can brag.
And then your wife is also the subject of Muir Woods.
Yes.
So this
Yeah,
is
and so where that one came from, so we've been together 29 years. In fact, in 2 days is when we met 29 years ago. And we've always wanted to she's always wanted to go to Muir Woods. And last December, we happened to go to Napa for her 50th birthday. And on the way back down to San Francisco, we stopped in Muir Woods. We just never went. And now that she's vision impaired, I wanted to make sure we went before she lost her sight completely. So the 5% still allows her to see.
right.
And so I didn't, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was a kind of a rainy day, unfortunately, and it was a great afternoon for us. We walked through, our guide dog was with us, and I didn't intend to write a poem. And one evening, I was just sitting around reading. I was inspired by this book called Adult Head by Jeff Tweedy. And
Mhm.
he wrote a poem called Easy Bake Oven that's in this. And I read that poem, and the first line is, I wish I could, right? And so that inspired me to say, well, I wish I could. And so I started to just write that in repetition. And then I incorporated this love poem, if you will, for Cindy about that experience. And so I oftentimes she isn't one of my first readers, and I read it to her, I think even before I shared it with you and Jeff, and she started crying. And you want to evoke emotion out of people with your writing, and
Sure.
so but that was a gift for me that she was touched by. I don't really show. She's like, she couldn't believe that, I'm not a hugely romantic person,
Oh,
and here I was able to, with my writing craft, give her this emotion, right?
I'm
So
sure
it's,
that's whatever, I mean,
yeah,
every
after all
writer,
those years, 29 years, right?
yeah, you'd love to bring any audience to tears, I feel. So,
For sure, for sure.
all right, so we talked about one piece of nonfiction, we talked about one poem. How about a fiction story called Empty? Which takes place in a very specific moment in a couple's relationship. And I'm just interested in why, I mean, you can briefly tell the particular moment, but why were you interested in sort of interrogating that potential moment in a relationship?
So the original idea came to me. We live in an area where there's a lot of restaurants, and we live in Wrigleyville, and so there's a bodega restaurant that we go to, Bodega Sir, and for whatever reason, bodega has such a different meaning in no matter where you're, like in New York it does versus Chicago, and it's a little shop, right? And I had this vision of this man eating this sloppy sandwich. And so the couple start by coming in the middle of winter with these sandwiches from this shop, and the sandwiches become kind of a centering piece for this relationship, if you will, or a meaningful part of it. And it starts off where, you know, the husband throws a snowball at the wife unexpectedly, and it gives her this bloody nose. And so this whole scene of this bloody nose, I tried to kind of put together the relationship with this blood coming out and this messy sandwich. And so again, another fiction piece that, or any of my work that really evolved over working with you and Jeff to make it what it became. And so I just had this vision of this older couple or middle-aged couple that is having these challenges in life, and this event of the snowball and the blood and the messy sandwich and just this horrible sticky relationship, if you will. And so it became this story called Empty that I don't want to give away the ending. So
You started with, so that's interesting. It was just sort of an image of a messy sandwich or someone with a messy sandwich, and then it kind of took on its own life from there.
yeah, and kind of despair, and there's poverty involved in this as well, and struggle, and so it's just this all these images just came to me of this couple, and sometimes it's just a gift that arrives and you run with it. And so none of it is based on any real life, which oftentimes, of course, in creative nonfiction, it does, in some of my poetry, obviously. And then in the short stories that I've included in this collection, we've included in this collection, none of them are based on truth, but oftentimes even a short story can be, launched from something that happened in life.
Right. I mean, the story's pretty amazing because it's such a small moment in time, but by the end of it, we can sort of understand much of their relationship that led up to it.
That's true. Yeah.
You often write about family dynamics. Family dynamics, the joys, the despair, the dysfunction. Is there some reason that you kind of find that such a fruitful thing to return to?
I mean, I just think that that's just how I process my emotion, how I process my life through art, if you will, or through writing. A lot of stuff I write, I just write and never come back to it. I'll just write that emotion that I'm feeling, that struggle that I'm feeling, just a way for me to work out whatever's going on in this crazy head. But I've also, I've got 2 adult children now. We've raised 2 kids. My wife with her disability, she's got a connective tissue disorder, and this lovely life that we live in the city of Chicago, and the friends that we have and the things that we do. So it's just a really strong way for me to just process what's going on, and family is the way it comes out oftentimes.
It's such a good argument to just write. You don't have to write to be published. You don't have to write to be famous. The process itself is so helpful.
Yeah, and that's why this was a surprise, right? Because I gave that up a while. Like, I didn't want to become a famous writer. And you get a lot of rejection, right? And so I gave up the rejection. And then when we, during COVID, brought back our writing group, and it's been the most consistent thing in my writing in a long time. We've been going strong for over 4 years. I started throwing stuff back out there, and even to get the rejection, it's just like, okay, on to the next one. Okay. Yeah. But before, like, you'd get hurt by it. And so once you get past that, something amazing like, Alien Budapest says, yes, I'll publish a collection of your stuff. So I'm really excited about that.
How many pieces were previously published?
Ooh, many.
Half and half?
Not many. No, maybe half of them. Yeah. Not a ton of them. Sometimes with poetry, they get 3 of them at the same time, right? So a bunch of them are new to the published world, if you will.
Right. That's right. I think as the perfect coda to our discussion is writing means so much. You have recently gotten a tattoo that represents some your writing.
So let's share that really quickly with the viewers. So here is this tattoo I got. It's about a week and a half old, from a really cool artist named Michael over at the Chicago Tattoo Company. And he's done a couple pieces for me before. This is on my right arm. So this is a composition book at the bottom, a pen. It's hard to see the whole thing because it's on a lot of my arm. An olive branch, and then this is a sparrow. And he added the sparrow at the end And I trusted him. And Sparrow is creativity. And as I'm getting, so at first I was like, I don't know if I want that, and then I'm like, yeah, let's go with it. And so as he's doing this, we start talking about Charles Bukowski, who's I'm a huge fan of. And I said, his original publisher was called Black Sparrow Press, and it's like, oh my goodness, there's the connection as well, right? Even not him not knowing who Charles Bukowski and Black Sparrow Press was. So I love this tattoo. It's a great, visual of our craft, and I did it in conjunction with the publication of Empty Streets coming out on June 12th.
And the significance of the olive branch?
Peace, I think, is what that came from. So Cindy also, had a hand in coming up with that, and she really suggested the olive branch.
Thanks so much to Cory Fosco for giving us a glimpse into his writing world. The book again is Empty Streets. When is the launch?
June 12th on Amazon. So I know this went a little bit longer than maybe we anticipated, but I really enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully people stick it out and watch the whole thing. But June 12th, and I'm sure we'll put links to the Amazon, where you can buy it on Amazon as well.
You've arrived as an American when you have something that you can buy on Amazon. So congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate the conversation.
All right. Bye all.